So it's becoming, I don't know if I use the word fad, but like anything, like anything that happens, most things that happen culturally, they happen, and they start to trickle down. So I think right now in places like Silicon Valley and Manhattan and Shanghai and London, there are certain groups of people drinking ayahuasca, and that's diffusing through the culture at large. And how that will play out, we don't know, because we're kind of, I don't necessarily think we're in the beginning stages of it, because it's been happening probably since the 1990s, but now we're getting in there now where it's happening more and more and more. So we'll see what happens. I don't really know the answer to that. Yeah.
So it sounds like you are the thinking that ideally, if one is going to drink ayahuasca, it would make sense to do so in sort of where it's indigenous?
Well, I'm not one of these pure people where I think things can be taken out of their context, and I think I'm not like, I don't mean like that, but for a safety reason I would say it.
Okay.
You know, I think that, and this isn't to say you couldn't drink ayahuasca in America. I have friends that
Sure.
are very versed in ayahuasca that drink it and wherever, but they're usually doing it with somebody that knows what they're doing. And they're usually doing it with the medicine that's been, they know where they got the medicine from, they know it, so they have a consciousness of what they're getting themselves into. My thing is not necessarily, it's not like you have to not everyone can go to the jungle,
Right.
so you can't fault people for that, but you got to know who you're doing it with,
Right.
Because this is like, you drink a big cup of ayahuasca, you're gone.
Right.
You can be gone, so you got to be safe when you do it.
Right.
That's my whole thing.
And you, like you mentioned, you had an opportunity to sit down with a very revered shaman, Ricardo Moringo.
Sure. Yeah.
And can you just share a little bit about what his thoughts are on the medicine and why it's so needed right now?
Yeah, I mean, shamans, Ricardo too, these people, a lot of these guys, if you ask them that, they're not going to give you a complicated answer. They're going to give a very straightforward answer, and they're not going to get into a kind of a theoretical nuance like myself trying to explain how something like ayahuasca is integrating with globalization. But someone like Ricardo would just say it's a medicine from God and it can help you. That's pretty much, of course he would elaborate more than that, but his basic thing would be it's a thing that's connected to God. It'll help you clear away bad spirits, bad energies, and it's going to help you live a better life. That would be the gist of what something like Ricardo Moringo would say. What a lot of shamans, they're not, at least the ones that I've come in contact with, I don't want to speak for all the shamans of the Upper Peruvian Amazon, but they, a lot of people think shamans are like these like kind of theoretically refined, well-read, like almost like an Indian guru who's giving like a lecture on the nature of life. They're really not like that. If I was to say what a shaman's like, I would say they're almost like a really good car mechanic. And like your body's the car.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like shamanism's a trade. It's not like, you're not like a professor at a college or like giving a lecture on the meaning of life. It's a skill.
Right.
So someone like Ricardo Moringo, he's not going to tell you, he's not going to give up and give a talk about the meaning of life. He's going to meet you in the Maloka at 8 at night, drink ayahuasca with you, and help you. So what a shaman is, they're a tradesperson. They have a skill that they've learned for decades and decades and decades, where they know how these plants work, they know what to do, they know how to sing, and they just know what they're doing. So that's how, I would compare Moringo, if anything, to like a really, really good car mechanic, and that he can fix your car, and the car happens to be your body and your mind, Yeah.
You spend a lot of time, obviously, probably connecting and associating with a lot of people who are going down there to partake in some sort of plant medicine. What sort of people are going down there? I'm sure it's a wide-ranging.
Yeah. Well, I do meet a lot of people coming down there, because there's, a lot of people coming down every week, all types of people from around the world. So I've met all types of people coming down there. I don't necessarily know if there's a common thread to people other than the fact that they want to heal in some capacity. That would be the common thread, obviously. And then you have some people who are just seekers in general. You have travelers. I've met a lot of people, like business people, who are looking to like just clear their mind to be more, better in their work or something like that. So it's different. It's a wide range of people. Yeah.
And you seem
artist too, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You seem to have very strong opinions on the state of the world, in particular the Western world.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share how living in a place like Iquitos can open your eyes to these sort of drastic cultural and societal differences?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, one of the great things about Iquitos is that it's the problem with. I think we talked about this last week. That Andrew Yang, the guy running for president, wrote a book called "The War on Normal People," something like that.
Yep.
And when I come back to America, that's what I see. It's like there's a war on normal people, and I don't mean that in like I don't mean that in like kind of an old-fashioned way, right? That we want to go like make America great again or something like that. I mean it in the sense that it's very hard to be just live a normal life in America right now. And Iquitos is full of normal people. And the paradox of that, this is the real paradox of that situation. In a place full of normal people, you get so many interesting people, so many characters. Whereas in America, what you have the opposite. You have a situation where everyone's trying to brand themselves and make themselves unique to stick out in their social media profile, and they're boring. They're completely boring.
Right.
So that the paradox of the situation is that, and I think we see this now happening. When I think back to my grandparents, my grandparents grew up in South Boston. On my dad's side, my mother's side, they're from Liverpool, and these are like the most colorful, hilarious, unique people you could ever meet.
Right.
But they were like, my grandfather worked for the post office.
Right,
he was
right.
the best.
Right.
What a great guy. And now you have everyone has you look at people's like Twitter profile and they're like connoisseur of Arabian coffee, whatever, like all this weird stuff, and they're like the most boring person you ever met in your life. Like that. So it's like the paradox of life is that when you can be normal or live in a quote unquote and Iquitos is anything but normal, right? In one way, you then all the eccentricities come out, then all the uniqueness comes out. You know, Jane Jacobs, who is the great writer of Urban American Life, she had this term for people called characters, and she wrote about her area of interest was Greenwich Village, and she would talk about these people. They were just like normal people that lived in the village, but they were unique in the sense that you'd see them on the corner and they'd have all these like great stories, and you know they'd have this great way about them that would bring forth the color of life. And you know, you walk through a neighborhood in like a gentrified neighborhood in New York, or like there's no characters anymore. Everyone's just going to work, and you know there's no time to be a character because it could maybe influence your capacity to earn a living, right? Or if you are a character, it's migrated onto Facebook. You're a character on Facebook or Twitter. Twitter's actually a lot of characters on Twitter. People, you know, Twitter's this thing where it's like let's try to be funny so we can get retweets.
Right.
But a character would be funny to be funny. There wasn't any technological or monetizing desire. It was to be funny because I'm part of a neighborhood. So in Iquitos, it's just like character. Oh my God, and it's great. So,
Sure.
So you get a sense of humanity that has sadly been lost in America over the past 25, 30 years since the rise of the internet and the introduction of what we could call neoliberalism or neoliberal ideology, which is basically the reduction of human life to capitalism. And everything is monetizable, everything can be sold. You know, Facebook, it's like Friends is commodities, basically. You know, where before Friends, it's like your friend, you know?
Right.
So this type of thing is not quite, I mean, it might eventually come to Iquitos, you don't know, because it's kind of taking over the world right now. But Iquitos, you have all these just regular working class people, and they're really great, wonderful, rich personalities. So that's been a great plus for me to see that. You know, it's funny. I go for a walk pretty much. I'm a big walker. I go for a walk every single night in Iquitos, and I always like what I love about it is you walk down the street. There's like kids on the street playing soccer, and the old men are playing cards, and they're smoking and they're drinking. And like the old ladies, like they're literally outside in their bathrobe, just like looking at the and it's like this is how life should be.
Right.
This would never happen in America right now, ever.
Right.
Whereas if you walk through, let's say the North End, let's use Boston for example. If you walk through the South End or the North End or South Boston in the 1920s, it would be something like that.
Right.
Kids would be playing stickball. The guys would be, it would be like that. And whereas today, it's not like that anymore.
Right.
It's not like that. And that has been lost in that's something that's been very much lost in society, and that's something, and a lot of people don't know why it's been lost.
Right.
And my writing is trying to explain why that's been lost. You know what I mean? and also to alert people that it's been a lot of people are so busy now that they've forgotten that it was even there at some point, you know? So that's been one of the great things about living. And I think it's particularly intense in Iquitos because it's so disconnected from a place like Lima. But even in Lima or Cusco or Bogota or Medellin, you're going to find a pretty vibrant street culture that dwarfs anything in the United States of America right now. Yeah.
I think we were talking, I think, last week, and you made a comment about how, you know, whether it's a mother or a father sitting on their porch and you were somehow, you know, suggesting they should be working, they might say, why?
Oh, yeah. They think you're crazy.
Right.
Yeah. You know, well, that's one of the things. I mean, and this isn't to say people don't work hard in Peru. They definitely do. I mean, these are hardworking people. But they work to, just to live. You know what I mean? If you were... I think what's happened in a place like America and basically all of globalization is we bought into this idea that life is business, business is life. It's like an equation between human life and the operation of the economy. Whereas in Peru, that link is not there. It's severed. There's family and I do my job, but after that it's like, see you later. Right. So it's like if you're trying to call someone in the Iquitos at 11 o'clock to check an email for a bit, they're like, what are you, out of your mind? Right. You know what I mean? So there's yes, they work hard, and I think all people, working hard is a good thing. Right. Nothing wrong with that. But what's happened here over the past 20, 30 years is that it's taken over existence, whereas you're totally immersed in capitalist productivity 24/7, where it's not like that a lot. And they would think you're crazy. Right. If you were to try to convince just a regular person in the Iquitos to check your email for work on a Friday night at 10, they would look at you like you're insane. Right. Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is what you're speaking to, as sort of what's happening here in terms of the go and, life hacks and just trying to be always busy. That is probably a big reason why many people from these types of cultures now or societies are going down there.
Oh, definitely.
Some sort of healing.
Oh, definitely. One of the things that I think that hasn't been quite brought to the surface yet in America is that when the therapeutic model in America is too, for me, biographically centered. For instance, you go into a therapist for the first day, I'm really, not doing great, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, da-da-da-da. And I'm being stereotypical here, but the therapist says, all right, tell me about your mother, or something like that. Mm-hmm. So they want to reduce it to some kind of repressed symptom or something that's biographical. We need a cultural therapy, right? And this isn't to say people don't have biographical traumas or had a horrible time with their mother. I'm not denying that at all. But I'm saying is that the psychic pathologies that are taking over 21st century American culture, they are much more cultural and social and economic than they are biographical. Right. And so the therapy that we need is to have a cultural therapy. One of the books that has dealt with this, there's been more and more books recently, theoretical books, but a great book is a book written by, tragically he committed suicide, but the British writer Mark Fisher, who wrote a book in 2008 called Capitalist Realism. And he gets into this, and that's been a big influence. Reading that book was like an eye-opener to me. It was like wow. When I read that book about 5 years ago, I would almost say it's like life-changing. Right. And I read it because it was like, yeah. This is like, he was like saying everything that I knew, but I wasn't able to put into words. So the therapeutic model in America, it has been reduced to neural mechanisms on one hand, which then call for some kind of pharmacological intervention. And then on the other hand, it's like this purely biographical, I had a bad childhood and this is causing problems in my adult life. But the fact of the matter is we live in a sick society. Right? And I don't mean that in a general sense, because society has always been sick. It was sick when Christ was walking through Nazareth 2,000 years ago. But the particular sickness of 21st century capitalism is very unique. Right. And it's causing loneliness and anxiety and depression in a socialized way. Depression is socialized today.